lasted a day.
I was going to ask you about that. I read in Dynamite's book they pulled a rib on you or something like that, and something happened where.
So he finally owned up to it.
Yeah,
did he?
yeah.
There you go. Okay.
So what exactly happened there?
Well, I mean, like I don't know if they pulled a rib.
Right.
But, they just lied.
Right.
We went up there and we didn't have a match the first night.
This is Rochester, New York, right?
Yeah, it was Buffalo one night and then Rochester the next.
Right.
The first night, Buffalo, we didn't have a match, so we just sort of met everybody, and then we were at a separate hotel, and the agents were trying to get us to go over to the other hotel. No, because we had this reputation of being partiers and stuff like
Right.
that.
I was going to ask you about that too.
Yeah, but and we were. So to answer your question, yes, we were. But we were young and having fun. So, but we came in. We knew that we had that rep, so we were going to try to stay out. Try to play it low key our first couple days in there. But they all asked us to go over to the hotel Ramada Renaissance. So eventually, we'll go in there because they were saying, hey, it's really important to get to know the boys and stuff. So we went in there, and everybody was in there. And really, all that happened, we went down. There was Davey, Jim Powers, one other person I can't remember. But Marty and I were just talking to him. Then Jimmy Jack Funk comes over, and he's just hammered. Jesse Ball.
Right.
And he's hammered. He goes, hey, you guys are big partiers. We went, well, no, we're just trying to be good. Come on, you big partier. And he bites, he just bites part of his glass off and chews it. I'm like, no. Come on, you gotta come on, show me what you got. Does another one. And he's just taking his ages, and finally I said, no, we're not doing it. He goes, come on, punk. And really, like now, okay, so I grabbed the glass. Okay, you want to see it? It's broken on my head, boom, and I left.
Right.
And that was it. Then also, he was going after this girl. Well, this girl ends up leaving with Marty.
Right.
So the next day, and that's all that happened, just that.
Right.
The next day, we're coming into the lunchroom, catering, and he comes and he goes, what the fuck's your problem? To Marty. And Marty goes, he thought it was ribbon, because we had hung out with before. Marty goes, what do you mean? What the fuck's your problem? What? And so anyway, he goes on this big spiel about how we're throwing glasses, tearing the bar up, this, that, and the other. So we go on. We had to work with him that night. Him and somebody else, Jose Estrada, I think.
Right.
So one of the agents says, "Look, you better fucking work with him." So we worked. We had the match, a good match. We come back. He goes, "Hey, I'm sorry, you guys are good workers." That night, Vince goes, "Hey, let's watch, throwing the bottles, throwing stuff in the bar," and walks out. We go, "Okay, sir." That was about it.
Right.
Now in 2 weeks we get this call. Oh, they're firing you guys. So in 2 weeks this thing has blown up into this whole. I mean, they're not getting rid of it. I mean, it's the way the business is.
Right.
Everything starts into this little, molehill turns into a mountain. And plus, the truth is never nearly as exciting as the exaggerated story. So we go, please let us go talk to Vince. So we fly up to the old office in Greenwich. I mean, Marty and I are sitting there just like I'm sitting here now. We got, this back in the day where you wore the cowboy boots,
Right.
the wrestling,
Zubak.
the snakeskin
Right.
cowboy boots. And Vince comes out and goes, hey, nice boots. And we went, oh, thanks. He goes, they're made for walking, We went, oh, God, please. He goes, oh, just kidding. Come on in. Came in, and then he fired us.
What were your initial impressions of Vince?
Just scary, bigger than life.
Right.
The same impression everybody's got of Vince McMahon when they first meet him, bigger than life.
Right.
And I'm sure, you've done some of these, and I'm willing to bet that's probably the same answer everybody gets, that he's just this very
intimidating.
Very, but a great guy, down to earth, but just, he's still, Vince McMahon, he's a large man, so he is very much bigger than life.
Right.
But then, so after that, we got fired. So we went all the way back down. Went from the big leagues, WWF, all the way down to Continental Wrestling.
Right.
Down there for the Fullers.
Right.
And then slowly,
Back to AWA.
Then went to what you were talking about was Memphis.
Right.
Working heels. We just sort of went in between AWA and Memphis there.
Right. And then eventually came back to the World Wrestling Federation 8 months later, I guess it was.
Something big, almost a year.
Right. And I guess some of your earlier matches, you worked with Jim Nighthart and Bret Hart.
Yes.
So what were some of your memories of those matches?
Great matches. Marty and I, we had good matches with almost everybody.
Definitely.
All the teams, and that's, I like to think Marty and I were sort of innovative for that time. I don't know that the tag team, the combination of tag teams and stuff like that, we're doing all the stuff Marty and I were doing. Now we're dinosaurs, but at the time it was very, very innovative, and we had a lot of good matches with a lot of people.
Right. fact, one of the matches that stands out is I guess it was Saturday night's main event with Tully and Arn.
Right.
It was an incredible match.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah, and we had good matches with the two big guys. Was it
Power Steam.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Warlord and Barbarian, and you know, and even Barbarian and Haku. We worked at WrestleMania. I mean, and WrestleMania with Boss Man and Akeem. So yeah, we had. I mean, I like to think we had good matches with just about everybody.
Right, right. What exactly happened? I guess was back October 30th. It was when you guys beat, I guess, Nighthart, and I guess Vince wanted to let Nighthart go, and they did the tag title change, and they said it never happened or something like that.
Yeah, and I don't know if it was. I don't recall it being a thing of letting Nighthart go. It was just we had. It was the same old story, like sort of very symbolic for the rest of my career. They had no intentions of putting the belts on us, but then after a while, Marty and I were getting over. So I said, you know, it's about time we switched the belts. So we were going to do a 2 out of 3 fall with the Hart Foundation. We went out there and we were having a match, but the top rope broke. Is what happened. So, and I can remember Brett having me or Marty, one of us in chinlock, and he said, we're just going to stay here. Let's make him fix it. We can edit it up.
Right.
So, you know, Brett and I are both, you know, I can't remember if I was on the outside or I was inside with him, but we were saying, you know, fix her up, and they were just, you know, the ref was you know, frozen. So we continue this match with no top rope, and they do their finish, you know, the whole one fall where they sort of, you know, we're trying to work this match where there's no top rope, which was extremely difficult. So anyway, we finished the match. We get the belts. And, probably 2 or 3 days later, Vince calls us up and says, well, we're going to, you know, return the belts because we can't. There's just no way we can put that thing on TV.
Right.
So that, I mean, that was really how that happened. And Marty and I were a little disappointed, but you know, he said that we were gonna that they would, you know, just put them on us another time. But then, from what I understand, is that had already gotten out so much,
Right.
that it's sort of, you know, you don't want to. It would have been too obvious that you know, the impact wouldn't have been the same.
Right, right. What was Hulk Hogan like in the locker room at the time?
He wasn't in our locker room. He had his own locker room. So, but I mean, he was all right. You know, I mean, my honest opinion of him was that, I mean, I could tell that he was a worker right off the bat.
Right.
You know, I mean, you knew very well not much of what came out of his mouth was the truth. He always had an agenda to everything he did and said.
Right, right. As far as tag team with Marty, did you guys always get along as a tag team, or was there obviously there was tension sometimes between the two?
Yeah, a little, but I mean, for the most part, you're talking about 7 years.
Right.
At the very least, we had great times. I mean, we had great times. But yeah, that's the only way I can say it without getting myself in trouble. But we did. We had a lot of fun. I mean, I was 19 when I met Marty, and I was 20 when I went up to Minneapolis and we started tagging. You know, I mean, for all that time, for us to get in maybe one fight is not bad at all. And that was the result of us both just being hammered.
Right. That was
you know
Denver,
what I mean?
I think. Denver or something like
Yeah,
that.
Denver, exactly.
Yeah.
And that was just us, you know, in the room and just playing around at first, and all of a sudden getting into a fight, and the next day not really having any.
Right.
I remember the next day I went to Phoenix, and him calling me, going, you know, can I talk, or, you know, are you gonna beat me up when I come to the door? And I said, no, you come on up. And he knocked on the door, and I came to the door and looked out. He was down the hall. He goes, "No, are you sure?" And that's the way it always was. Like, get in here. I couldn't hit you now if I tried. It's too funny. So it was just one of those things that happened. I mean, and that's the thing. Marty and I did. Marty and I weren't one of those teams like Brett and Jim never stayed together, and most time didn't travel together. Right. Marty and I stayed together, traveled together. I mean, and everywhere we lived in the same apartment complex. I mean, he and I worked together, 24 hours a day for 7 years. So I personally, I say one fight, I think it's great.
Right. What led to the breakup of the team? I heard, I don't know how true it is that Pat Patterson wanted to split you guys up and basically, you know, make you into a big star, and they didn't really have plans for Marty. So I don't know how true it is. I guess you guys gave notice or something like that to WCW at the time?
Well, what happened was we were at this shoot for a cereal box that was coming out. It was me and Marty, the Road Warriors, Beefcake, and like 2 other singles guys.
Right.
Everybody was getting $5,000 a piece for it. Marty and I were getting $2,500 a piece. And we, they were telling us, well, because you're a tag team, you get split the $5,000. With the Warriors, we're getting 5 and 5.
Right.
And we got wind of that. So Marty got hot, and he was hot, and he goes, man, that's bullshit, I'm gonna give him a call. And I said, all right. He goes, you stick with me? I said, yeah. I said, we've always stuck together. And so, but I didn't know he meant, I guess, I'm gonna call and give our notice. So he calls up and apparently threatens, we're leaving, going to WCW. And this whole time that he's been saying, and the whole time prior to this, he's been saying he's been talking with him. He can get us a couple $100,000 there, to go there. So he calls me up and goes, "Well, oh no, I get a call from Vince. I'm sorry to hear you're leaving." I went, what? And he goes, "Well, Marty called and apparently you guys are upset." I said, "Well, yeah, we're upset. It's pretty unfair." He goes, "It's not a problem. I'll give I'll send another $2,500 each to you in the mail."
All right.
And that's the thing. Marty never did any of that kind of stuff. He didn't just say, that's unfair. He would go off and burn that bridge.
Right.
I mean, Marty wasn't that much of a. He would just.
Right.
Put a flamethrower to a place, and that was it.
Right.
That was the answer. So, so I said, "Well, that sounds fine to me." I said, "Because I don't want to leave." And he says, "Well, Shawn, I'm gonna tell you what." He said, well, "If you leave, that's fine." He said, "But you've always got a singles career here. You've always got a career here, period." He said, "But I think that," he said, "you're getting, you've matured now. You're getting to the point where you're not fucking up like like you did way back when you first came in." He said, "I think you're gonna be a big star in this business. So whenever you want to do it, you let me know." And I said, "Well," I said, "really with this, with Marty having done this without asking me," I said, I gotta be honest with you. I said, I think it's that time, because I think that's sort of the last straw." I said, "Plus, I wanna move on, So he said, "Well, just let me know." So I hung up with him and I called Marty. I said, "What are you doing? You giving our notes?" He said, "Well, you said you'd stick with me." I said, "Well, yeah, I thought you meant,
Right.
I didn't know that meant you were gonna call and tell them we were quitting without consulting me first." I said, "Because I'm not just going to get up and leave." So he says, "Well, we can make more money WCW." I said, "Well, all right then." I said, "Then call." He goes, "Well," he goes, "Look," he said, fuck, I think you probably, you should probably call." He goes, "You know me, I got heat, people, and I think I'm a fuck up, so maybe you should call." I said, "I don't know who to call." I said, who's the person you've been talking to?" He goes, "Well, I haven't, because I haven't really been talking to anybody." So finally, I asked one of the Nasty Boys, get like Dusty's number.
Right.
And that's who it was. I think it was Knobs. I asked him to get Dusty's number. I called Dusty. He sends me to the Magnum TA, and finally I talked with him, and we might be able to give you 75, maybe 105. It's like, we're making double that now.
Right.
In the WWF. We weren't, but we're probably making 150, 180-ish. So if we're gonna move, we'll at least make some more money. He goes, "Well, we just can't afford that. Everybody's calling here because we give guarantees and asking for big money. That's just not something we can do." I called Marty. I said, "Look, they ain't biting. And, I don't know who it was you talked to." He goes, "Well," and that's when it came clean. I haven't really talked to him. So I went, "Look," I said, "Marty, I gotta be honest." I said, "I've always told you when we first started this, my ultimate goal was to go singles and have a singles career." I said, "And this whole debacle to me," I said, "I'm not saying it's your fault." I said, "But it's something that I don't want to run into anymore.
Right.
I want to handle my own career." I said, "I want to go singles." I said, "I think it's time for us to work that angle that we've always talked about." Because we used to always talk about eventually we're going to have to do, the angle. So, he was a little upset, and then, he goes, "What's supposed to happen to me?" And I said, "Well, what's going to happen with both of us? We're both going to then get judged on wherever our careers take us." And he was upset, and I was the prick for doing it. Obviously, I was the prick for a lot of things, just because I was one to speak up. But I said, "Look, sorry." I said, "But just because you say they're going to go with you doesn't mean you can't be a successful singles wrestler."
Right.
That's the way the WWF certainly is. You get over it, they're going to use you. Plain and simple. Doesn't matter if they like it or they don't like it. You get over it, you're going to get used. And I said, then that's what I told him. I said, "If you could just, whatever we do, whether I go over or not, at least make it all good." I said, "Because where you go after that's really going to determine where you go in your career." I said, "You and I will do our thing." I said, and you think they'll put me over? I said, and I want them to.
Right.
I said, but the important thing is where we both go after that. Because that's only going to be the Rockers splitting up and having a match. That's one match. That's got nothing to do with where you go after that. So, I ended up, the barbershop idea was an idea that I had tore an ankle for me in the Nasty Boys, for Marty and I in the Nasty Boys.
Right.
But then I decided to just use that. I ran it by Vince and he liked it, so we just used it for Marty and I did the breakup actually here in San Antonio.
Right. And that's when actually Sherry, I guess, was put with you. Eventually,
Yes.
she had to crush on somebody, and then Sherry was put with you, and I guess Randy left the promotion. What was it like working with Sherry Martell?
She was cool. Sherry was very cool. She was great with me. She was very protective of me because, one, I was going singles, and that was still at a time when a lot of the older guys were here, so they wouldn't sell for me. They wouldn't do a lot of things. Didn't want to put me over. Ran into a great many problems. And all the time, she was very supportive, and she'd see, guys were stiff with me, and she'd say, "Throw them out here." I'd throw them out, and she'd get them.
Right.
Wow, she'd kick them and scratch them, and then, then they'd come back into me like, "Don't throw me out there." And but she was, and she had been with Randy, so she was also very smart, and she could see this bullshit. These guys, she said, they're being stiff with you, they don't want to put you over, they're not selling for you. She said, and half of them are being pricks behind your back and going and talking to them, trying to bury it. So there were a lot of things that I had to go through, which in turn made me angry, which in turn was the reason later on in my career I stuffed it in everybody's face.
Right. And then you had your run with the Bulldog, and you
Yes.
won the IC title.
Right.
What are your memories of some matches with British Bulldog?
All good. Me and Davey had really good matches. The only thing I don't like is that I don't think we ever get credit for it. I thought they were good, and I just didn't like the fact that he didn't get that much credit for them, and they don't. Not until years later, I think, till I got out of wrestling, people go, "Them matches with the Bulldog were really good." But I thought David was always really easy to work with and a lot of fun.
Right.
And it was just, not doesn't bother me like tons. It was just like I think I could have had, because I never really wanted to do a really big long angle with Davey. Davey was always a guy that came in, he did one shot with, and then he went somewhere else, and you went and did a program with somebody else. But he never got to work a program with people because I'm guessing it's because he wasn't that great on the stick.
Right.
On talking. But he was a great worker and really a great deal of fun to work with because he wasn't hung up on anything. He was the first guy that I got to work with that was more concerned about just having a good match like I was.
Yeah, a lot of guys basically back in the day, they just went through the motions, and they still do today. And
Right.
Did you ever have heat behind the scenes? I know Ricky Steamboat said that he always had heat with certain guys because he'd go out there and work an awesome match, and then the other guys would have to follow his match and be like, "Oh, you just killed me."
Oh yeah, and they would say you're doing too much. You got to stop doing that much. That doesn't make sense. And oh yeah, and again, that's, as I was saying to you earlier, that's why later on, when I finally got a chance to make it, I was finally able to say, "No, fuck you."
Right.
You guys were pricks to me for so long. Now I'm a great guy. I didn't forget any of that stuff. But they were exactly like that. They were all extremely lazy. When Marty and I came in there, it wasn't 2 months before he and I were closing every show. With the Conquistadors, we'd go on last. Hogan would go on 4th or 5th before intermission. He'd be gone. Marty and I closed every show. And then when I went singles after that, I closed just about every show in my career in the WWF, and I was never getting main event pay until the
Right.
end.
Then Marty came back at the Monday Night Raw, I think it was. And,
Yeah.
he beat you
In
for the
Manhattan.
belt. What are your memories of that match?
It was just, I think I remember Vince, because I didn't know he was coming back. I remember Vince springing it on me and, saying, "Sounds like a good idea to me." Oh, that's cool. I would have liked to have, because that angle between Marty and I because he came in and out,
Right.
never got, what it could have been, and every time he came back, I told him that. I was like, why didn't you stay here? First thing you did wrong was shoot yourself in the foot, you
Right.
know? So, but the match was good. It was in that Manhattan Center. It was one of the first Monday Night Raws. And the Manhattan Center was a great environment, very jumping atmosphere in that small place.
Right.
So I thought it was cool. And working with Marty was easy because he and I knew each other like the back of our hands. Our timing was there. Stuff you didn't even have to talk about. You could just see it on each other's face and know what was coming up next.
Right. And 6 weeks later, I guess you beat him for the belt. And
Yeah.
Okay.
And I think in Albany, New York, I think.
Right. And then you left the promotion. What happened there?
I left?
Yeah, I think you quit after you had the belt for 6 weeks or something like
Right.
that. And then you suddenly disappeared.
Yeah, no, I got a phone call one day Vince says, failed drug test. And I said, what? He's failed drug test. I said, what are you, you're on steroids. I said, I'm on, and you know, you accuse me of a lot of stuff, but steroids was never my bag. And plus that time I was fat, you know, that's when I was out, that's when Kevin was here, Scott was here, and we were just out drinking every night, and I was eating with these guys. And he says, you know, you're on steroids. I said, no. I said, I'm not taking steroids. And he said, well, you've tested positive. I said, to what? And he goes, I don't know, some form of testosterone. I said, what? Can you be more specific? He goes, well, I'd have to run more tests. Well, do it. I said, I'd like to know what you're accusing me of. And he said, well, I'm not going to do that. He said, you're on them. And, you know, I said, I'm not on them. And then he said, well, he said, it's not very much, just a trace. I said, well, I guess it probably is. I said, because best I could figure out, someone must have, which went on a bunch. And it was real simple. I could admit that I was on him, and it could be just between he and I could come back to work. Or I could say, fuck you, and take the 6 weeks off.
Right.
Being who I was, I said, fuck you, I'm taking the 6 weeks.
Right.
I said, I'll see you in 6 weeks.
Right.
So, because I'm not going to, because I wasn't, and that's the way I've always been with Vince. And I also think, looking back on it, I think that was his way of testing me. And because after that, he never ever gave me an ultimatum after that.
Right.
Because he knew that I was always, if I believed I didn't do something, I wasn't going to admit that I did, because I didn't do it.
What are your views on steroids and painkillers and wrestling?
They're always going to be there. You know, I was never a big steroid guy, but I've taken, you know, I've done prescription pills, and there's not anybody that's going to tell me that you know, I didn't have every reason in the world to take it.
Right.
I used to beat the hell out of myself every night, night after night. So they're part of wrestling. They're part of this business, and the chances of getting rid of them, you know, you'd have a better chance, you know, pissing against the wind and not getting wet.
Right.
You know, than trying to rid the business of that kind of stuff. I think the best you can do is, as they said with Michael Jordan, you can't stop him, you can just contain him. So I think that's all you can really do, is just try to contain it. And they did that. They did that with you know, with the drug testing and all that. It got so much that all of us, you know, just went, it's not, you know, shit, it's not worth it.
Right. Was Vince really strict with that, or was he like letting top guys go? No, he was strict. Because that was about the whole thing.
Yeah, no, he was strict. I mean, best I can assume, I think that, I eventually got to be a top guy, and, you know, I never got cut any slack.
Right.
But I mean, at that time, you know, there was also, at that time, I also had my priorities different. You know, I mean, at one time, you know, I was like, oh man, what's supposed to do? We want to do this. But then once you realize, okay, now I want to make money.
Right.
So